All right, some more Grimdark Future battle report, some OPR 3.2 testing. It's Orc Marauders versus the Dow Union. I have my eye on Orc Marauders as an army. Um, really wanted to get my hands on this army and see how they do from a competitive standpoint. Putting them against some Dow Union army that I had played previously. You can check that battle report out. So, more testing of OPR 3.2, 3,000 points, 5 objectives. Playing the command points, as you can see right there. We'll do that as always. So let's get into the army lists. So for the Orc Marauders, one thing I did is I occasionally, from a competitive standpoint, do bring in some custom armies. So I brought in the Orc Marauders expanded custom list that I think is pretty good. Added in this Overboss, which I think is a great thing to use for things like Gaskell. So I'm actually using that model. So he's armed pretty well. The Brutal Claw, a lot of he's got regeneration on here, heaviest armor. Got some Warcry in the army. That's something that I think that's the really thing that makes Orc Marauders a really solid army, is that they do get access to a lot of Warcry, and that could be a real good counter to a lot of armies that are being very ambush heavy. So I've got that. I've got a boss leader. He's running with some boss mobs. He's got the warning cry as well. So I've got about 3 warning cries in this army. He's got the war cry, so that's fast on this unit. Also, a lot of AP4 in this army, and that's sort of the thing that I think makes orcs a really solid army. They do suffer from the pistol attacks, but that bad shot sort of negates that. So Warcry is just giving them fast. Super good. Two models that I think are going to do super good, and that is those Goblin Champs. The Orc spells are super good, and I think those Goblin Champs, 80 points for a caster 3, 2 of them. I think it's a super good unit. So I really like those Goblin Champs. 2 Goblin Herds with pistols. I think Goblin Herds are also great. 75 points with a 4-up shot is great. I'm running some Attack Beasts. This is from the custom army. Got them with Warning Cry as well. 50 points is another really good chaff unit. I've got a 20-man unit of Orc Mobs that I'm running with regen. I've got some Flamers, and I've got, again, some Ultra Claws. So I'm running very heavy AP4 in this army. Boss Mob, as you can see, 9 Ultra Claws and 1 Ultra Axe. So just a lot of heavy hitting. I think with the rending point increase, it really makes the AP4 a lot better than rending now. Got some Ultra Bosses. These guys, the Carbons, I didn't upgrade them any, just gave them some Ultra Axes, and then gave them their Carbon mods. I'm really interested to see. They feel pretty pricey for what they do, but I wanted to try them out. Got a truck. Truck's really cheap. 190 is great for orcs. And the other thing I really want to try to do is 2 Orc Walkers. I'm going to be using these Orc Walkers, again, AP4, but the big thing these Orc Walkers are going to do, I want to use them almost as sort of almost like a shooting block. Like, in other words, just using these units to rush forward and just take all the shots, and then eventually die, and then have the orcs come behind them. So that's the plan with this army. So this is the Dow Union. Played it previously. Didn't make any changes to it. So it's a Grunt Hero with Volley Fire. That's Relentless. Got 2 Grunt Squads. He's with one of them, just with the 30-inch pulse rifles. So I'm not doing the pulse shotguns. I want to try the 30-inch range on them. I've got some battle suits, a 6-man, and then I got 2 3-mans. All of them armed with rending. They didn't do me so good last game. I want to sort of give them a shot again. I got some gun drones. Gun drones did pretty well. They're armed with a lot of rending-based army. So that's something I want to continue to try with this this Dow army. Some sniper drones. I've got a hover tank. Didn't do me good last round, but I want to try it again. And I've got a Tide Titan. He's armed the same. Nothing's changed with this army, with just some rending. And I do have some fusers in there as well. All right, for the setup. So for the Dow, this is all their battle suits. They're coming in for ambush. Same thing as last game. And this is just the setup here. So you can see the Dow sort of set up pretty central. The big thing I want to try to do is I'm going to try to protect my grunt squads in the center and my gun drones, trying to set up in the center with them. And then I've got my Tide Titan and my tank on the far other end. Towards the center, you see it's 5 objectives here, so just spread out accordingly, and that's just how the Dow set up. It's just another picture. See, I've got my leader up in the building. So just so you know, sometimes the movement, especially with buildings, is a little off, and that's because Tabletop Simulator sometimes has a hard time. It's difficult sometimes to put models where you want them to be when it comes to buildings. So just keep in mind, sometimes when it's buildings, some of these models are off. So yeah, this is the Orc army, and this is the plan that I wanted to try with this army. It's all running in your face, and I've got basically 2 Orc walkers that are going to be rushing forward. They're going to tank a lot of shots. They're probably going to die, and then I'm going to have the rest of the army come in. I've got my 2 goblin mobs on the flanks. I've got my overbosses, ultra bosses on the right flank. And then I've got my truck that has the boss mob in there. I've got the big leader on the other side. So you can see I'm using my warning cry to sort of protect the center, which has those. You'll see them later. They've got those little goblins in there. So this is just up close. I'm going to be using those 2 orc walkers as sort of shooting protection for the rest of the army. You can sort of see it. I have a pale grot that's right next to those. That's my grot. That's my goblin caster, and then I've got the regular goblins below there. So it's just showing those little goblins. If you can protect them, I think they're going to do super well this game. That's just the boss mob that have the boss leader that's in the truck. And that's just how it looks here. You can see one thing to note. I am playing so that center piece of terrain in the center. I'm playing that as all blocking that you can go through, but basically it's got some blocking terrain in there unless you get in the building. So just to give it a little more blocking terrain, that's just another picture of the Dow setup here. All right, turn 1. The Orc Marauders did get to go first, and so the first strategy is basically to have these Orc Walkers. I didn't give them any shooting. I just want to keep these guys cheap. I'm just running these guys straight up just to try to absorb some enemy firepower. So he just rushes up. I actually take my gun drones and I move them up. These are the rending guys. I shoot, do a great job, and do 5 wounds into the Orc Walker. So I roll some good rendings here. Good start to the game. At this point, I have my little Goblin Champion. He moves up. He uses 2 from the other Goblin Champion. He casts Stealth on the Dreadnought. I want to try the new Dreadnought changes. So he gives Stealth, and then he gives Rending to the boss mob, and he gives it to the Orc. So that's just notating there. I love these level 3s with bringing 2 of them, where you could basically cast 2 spells, 2 buffs a turn. So I love them. That's what I'm trying to do, trying to put Rending on these Orc Walkers. The Sniper drones move up. They shoot at the Dreadnought, but again, that Stealth is just coming in. Don't even do any wounds to the Dreadnought, which is great. The Goblin mob, they move up and they grab the objective. These guys here, they're able to shoot at the Dreadnought. I think they do, they do 1 more wound. That brings him to exactly half, so he does fail his morale. I do spend a command point to remove that waiver, so that's happening there. But yeah, just enough to cause that waiver check on him. That is the problem with those Orc Walkers. They're only quality 4. But they're also really cheap, so I'm not going to complain. All right, so this Goblin, he only has 2 left. He spends those 2 to cast Stealth on this Dreadnought. So that's the goal of this army. It's going to sort of use its Dreadnoughts to move up, take firepower, put Stealth on them. This Grunt Squad moves up, shoots at that Dreadnought. Again, does 1 wound. It passes its morale this time. At this point, I have these boys. They move up. And they rush up on the other side of the building. The tank moves up. It has its indirect, so it's able to shoot at those Orc mob. It hits with 1 of those blasts, kills 3 of them. I think it misses on its other blast hits. That quality 4 on that tank is just not doing so great. The Orc truck with boss mob, it rushes up behind the Dreadnought. That's that boss mob in there that they're fast and they have that regen. This is the Tide Titan. It moves up, but it stays moves up, but it's just out of shooting range. So one of the things, having a smaller army with more activations, those Orcs can sort of force the opponent to move their important models first. So this guy actually doesn't get a chance to shoot. So yeah, at this point, the other Orc Walker, it rushes up. Again, the Dow had no activations left. So this is just a whole bunch of rushing forward. The Goblins rush forward. The ultra bosses, they rush forward onto the building. I mean, they can only go 6 for difficult terrain. And the attack swarm, the beasts move up. You can see one thing I'm doing is I'm using my warning cries to basically be on the flanks of the army. So with my 3 warning cries, also he has warning cry as well. This is my overboss leader. He moves up. So I've got a lot of warning cry to basically cover the entire army. He also has the double time. So he actually double times the dreadnought right in front of the face of the Dow army. So yeah, that's the end of the first turn. The orcs, the strategy is working. Oh, the other thing is the boss mob actually gets out of the truck. So the boss mob do disembark. All right, so, and yeah, you can see that the strategy is working. The orc walkers have took a lot of damage, but they've also really covered. This is another thing that the orcs have done. They've really been aggressive about grabbing the objectives. They've grabbed 3 of them so far. And the Dow sort of haven't been able to grab a single one yet, but they do have their ambush coming in next round. You can just see the Dow here. One of the things that the Dow did move up, but they sort of, like, I'm sort of trying to block some of these orc walkers from charging me next turn. That's just a picture of the overboss as well. Yeah, and that's just a picture of the boss mob. You can see I've got the boss leader on the far end, so using his warning cry. I really like warning cry in the orc army. It's a minor thing, but in this game, it's very important. Turn 2, the Dow Union do get to throw first, and they drop. So this is them dropping their ambushes. So I drop a 3-man on the right side of the field, hopefully to sort of clear out some of those units and grab some of those objectives. I do have to commit the 6-man on this side just to try to deal with. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming my way. And then I have the other 3-man is actually on that forest over there. You'll see them later. I do drop them as well. All right. First thing I do is the gun drones. They do need to block the. Again, this guy could charge me, especially with the double time. So I'm trying to just hold them back. So I move up. I shoot at the dreadnought. I roll really bad. This time I only do 1 wound. And at this point, I do waver the dreadnought, but I spend a command point to unwaver that dreadnought. Seeing that dreadnought's already pretty damaged, he charges in, rolls pretty good, kills 5 of those gun drones, and the gun drones do rout, and then he consolidates up. That's a big problem with Dow. That quality 5 is just a real rough thing to deal with. So yeah, that's just them. The TIE Titan moves up. He gets within range to. He moves up pretty close because he has to get within range to shoot at that dreadnought without stealth. He does 6, but the dreadnought does pass his morale. So that's between the rending shots and the fusion rifles. He does 6. At this point, I have the dreadnought charges the tank. He does 6, but the tank luckily passes his morale, which is good. I have the grunt squad on the building. They shoot at the tank. They shoot at the wounded dreadnought. They do some more wounds, but he does pass his morale. The thing is those guys are really tough, and once you can sort of get them there, it's great. This so one of my little goblin champs, he rushes into the building, rushes on the other side. He casts a damage spell. He casts the level 3, I think, and he does. He kills 5 of the grunt squad, and he does another 2 into the tank. So he wavers the grunt squad, and the tank passes his morale again, luckily. So at this point, the tank is trying to get out of the way, so he moves to the right side, and he then shoots at the goblins, takes out a few of them, and then he shoots at the... so he splits his fire, shoots at the goblins, and then he shoots at the dreadnought. He does another wound to the dreadnought, but the dreadnought is now passing his morale. So this dreadnought is just doing me so much work. He's tanking so much fire. I think he's at 3, 6, 9. He's at 11 wounds. 1 wound left will kill him. At this point, the goblins, they move up. They shoot at the stealth drones. Manage to kill 2 of them, even with the 9-inch. The goblins roll pretty good, and they don't roll great for their armor saves. So kills 2 of them. I'm sorry, kills 3 of them, and they waver. So that's a pretty good thing. I do spend a command point to remove the waver on them. They move back, and they try to shoot at this dreadnought to do 1 last wound to them, and they finally do 1 wound, kill off that dreadnought. But that dreadnought has done so much work, just absorbing so much firepower. All right, the overboss, he moves up to the top. He grabs the center, and he shoots at the battle suits. below. And then he also double times the boss mob. So this is another thing in the army that I think is super powerful. I double time those boss mobs. They have fast, and I've got a goblin that also can give them flying. So it's just there's a lot of speed in this army. He does 1 wound into the battle suits. The battle suits back off, and they shoot at the other dreadnought, and they flame the goblins. No, I'm sorry. They just shoot at the. They shoot at the. They shoot at the dreadnought, cause some wounds. He does pass his morale, and then they shoot at the goblins. Then they split their fire and they kill some goblins. They do waver those goblins as well. At this point, the ultra bosses, they just rush up. The 3-man squad of battle suits, they move back and they shoot at that dreadnought. Finally, they're able to kill it, and that's almost 2 turns of fire that these dreadnoughts have absorbed. So I have the other goblin shaman. You can see him on the other side of the building. He casts flying on both the boss mob and the orc mob. Like the orc spells are so good. So he's able to get the flying off on these 2 units. Orc spells are super good. At this point, the Dow, they unwaver their grunt squad. And between the fast and the flying, these guys, these boss mob are able to charge over the building into the forest and then onto these battle suits. They kill 3 of them, and then those battle suits waver and they consolidate towards the center. It's a brutal army. The truck moves up, it shoots at the battle suits with this missile launcher, fails to wound. These guys just fly on the other side of the building, right? Because they've got flying, they're able to just basically leap over the building, and they're just right in the face. The other green unit of battle suits, they move up, they shoot at the goblins, they kill them. So the goblins just did their job, and they're just absorbing fire power. These attack swarms, they just grab the objective and are just going to stay in cover, just to be annoying. And yeah, that is turn 2. I mean, this orc army is super good. It's super fast. I mean, those spells, those goblin champions being 80 points are super good. I mean, that's 160 points for 6 spell tokens. They've got rending, they've got the movement spell, they've got stealth. I mean, they've got some great spells. Orcs are, I mean, their spells, this is a super good army from what I'm seeing. That's just another picture as well, and you can just see this orc army has just been very aggressive. It's really able to close the distance really fast. And that's just another picture as well. And you can just see here, I mean, the Dow have just gotten hit so hard. And then even the battle suits, I mean, losing the 6-man was rough. They have cleared out this to an extent, but they've still got overbosses coming on their way. And that's just another picture as well. At turn 3, the Dow do get to go first. We'll see what they can do. It's definitely going to be that Tide Titan. He needs to do a lot. The Tide Titan moves up, and he shoots at those Ultra bosses. He kills 3, so he does 9 wounds between the fusers and the rending. Kills 3 of them. They do pass their morale. At this point, those overbosses, they go ahead and just charge that Tide. They do 6 wounds into him and take 3 in return, so that Tide does have a sword, able to kill one of those guys. But still, all that AP4, he does a respectable amount of damage into that Tide Titan. The Tide Titan passes his morale. These battle suits, they move up and they shoot at that boss mob. They kill 3 of them, but those boss mob, like I said, the regeneration on them isn't doing so great, but because of that rending. So at these guys, they charge. They are able to get into the bottom of the building, and they charge the grunt squad. Kill 8 of them, I think, and then the grunt squad do pass their morale with the leader at least. The tank moves up, it shoots at the orc squad, kills 4 of them. So those guys do have the regen, so that orc mob is a little tougher as well. This truck actually charges with the impact into the 5-man grunt squad, kills 3 of them, but those grunts do pass their morale this time. The other battle suits, they move closer to the objective. They shoot at the ultra bosses, kill 1. There's just 1 left, but he does pass his morale. Just the regular orc boss, they charge. They still have their rending on them, and between the rending, they were able to just kill all those battle suits. So yeah, pretty rough there. And they just consolidate a little further. The Grunt Squad, they shoot at the boss mob. They kill 3, but the boss mob do pass their morale. So did finally get them down to half. And this is these goblins. The level 3 moves up. He casts his damage spell, the level 3 damage spell that does 6 hits on 2 units. So he does 3 into the Tide and does another 3 into both. Yeah, he does wounds to both. These guys, they move up and they shoot the Goblin Shaman in cover. They do 1 wound, but that's not enough to waver him. So he, just with 2 wounds, remember, he used one of those spell tokens to cast at level 3. He moves up and he casts the Deadly Spell on the tank. He finishes it off, right? The tank had had 10 wounds, so he does the Deadly Spell on him and kills that tank off. The sniper drones move up. They shoot and they waver the goblins again. Those goblins just then unwaver. And the overboss, so he moves up. He double times the boss mob closer. And then he has to double time it off the building. So the what's it called? The pack animals on the bottom, they just move up and grab the objective. And that's the end of the second. That's the end of the turn. Again, this Orc army is just super fast. It's in your face. A lot of AP4, great spells to back up, and you can just see the Dow army are just folding. It's a pretty rough one here. So turn 4. The Dow does go first. So I go ahead, and so at this point, it's just trying to see what I can do. The Tide Titan moves up. It shoots at the Ultra Boss, does 4 wounds into him, and so it splits its fire. It does 5 wounds into the Orc Mob, and then 4 wounds into the Ultra Boss with the fusers. Both pass their morale. Yeah, at this point, the last of the Ultras charge the battle suits. They basically trade 2 wounds apiece. The battle suits basically move and contest the objective. They shoot and they kill off the last of the Ultra Bosses. The truck charges the sniper drones and kills them with the impact 6 on them. This is the Grunt Squad shoots at the Orc Mob, kills 2 of them, but they do pass their morale. So, and this is these goblins. The level 3 caster, he borrows one of the spell tokens from the other one. Uses the level 3 damage spell, he does 5 wounds into these guys, and he does 1 wound into the Tide Titan. The battle suits do waver because they're just below 50%. And at this point, the Grunt Squad, it moves up and it shoots at the wounded caster. He does another wound, and with quality 6, it does waver him. The Overboss charges the Tide Titan. They trade wounds. This Tide Titan has been impressive. I have liked this Tide Titan. He has taken a lot of wounds, but he finally dies to the Overboss. He fails to smurl and routes. And the game is sort of called there. Once the Tide Titan died, that's sort of it. So you can just see the Orcs have basically grabbed all 5 of the objectives. They grabbed 4 of them, but I mean, it's a rough one. This Dow army, so I guess it's a 4-0 victory. I guess I counted it as a 5-0 victory, but yeah, it's a turn 4 succession by the Dow Union. I really like double time on it's called an overboss, but this is a mega boss. But yeah, that overtime on there or double time is super good. So some learning points. I think I'm going to need to go back to the drawing board with these Dow army. I may look at bringing some grunt squads with shotguns. I think that playing Dow as you play them in 40k as some sort of long range army, it's just not going to work in Grimdark. You really need to have some close range weapons. I'm probably going to bring maybe even 2 just pure hand-to-hand Tide Titans. I think that those Tide Titans did me good. I may try and bring another one. I think the Orcs are super solid. Man, these Ultra Bosses, the Ultra Bosses weren't impressive. I thought that they were a little expensive. Armor 4 for almost 500 points. I don't know. I felt that they were a little pricey. I love these level 3 Goblin Casters. These Goblin Casters are... the spells for orcs are great with Stealth, Fly, and Rending. Super good. And they're all debuffed. I mean, sorry, they're all buff spells. These things are 80 points. Like these Goblin... This is the sleeper right here. These level 3 Goblin Casters are just so good. Alright, thanks for watching. You can always provide feedback, like, subscribe, comment, and if you're in Austin, you can always join the Austin Alternative Gaming Freaks. Hey, thanks, guys.